paying the kids in clout. Clout don't pay bills. Clout also doesn't buy grocery. Welcome back to Wine and Chill. I'm Stephanie, your favorite recovering lawyer, and today we're gonna talk about Jay-Z, the black billionaires, and why black capitalism won't save black people. Today's agenda is going to be a little bit of Capitalism 101, America's favorite black billionaires, and their very interesting business practices, the rant that has reignited this conversation, which is Jay-Z's tirade on Twitter Spaces. And last but not least, we're going to end on the one-off good deeds that people think are somehow systemic changes. What is capitalism? Capitalism is an economic system characterized by private ownership in which the free market alone controls the production of goods and services. And that is specifically laissez-faire capitalism. Capitalism inherently creates two large divides. One between the owner of the means of production and the workers who do the actual labor but do not own anything and are instead just paid in wages. The second divide is between the owners of the means of production and consumers. Now, the origin of capitalism did not start with the one Sean Carter. Capitalist theory is traditionally traced to the 18th century treatise An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, and the origins of capitalism as an economic system can be placed in the 16th century, so the 1500s. Long before Sean Carter was even thought of. From the 16th to the 18th century in England, the industrialization of mass enterprises such as the cloth industry gave rise to a system in which accumulated capital was invested to increase productivity, capitalism in other words. While the US does indeed function on a capitalist system, we do not function on pure free market, although we are slowly deregulating our way there, which is a problem. We have government agencies such as the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. The FTC's mission is to protect the public from deceptive or unfair business practices and from unfair methods of competition through law enforcement, advocacy, research, and education. Also, to protect workers, we have the Department of Labor, which the Department of Labor, is giving it a good old-fashioned try in that area. Yeah, they need more funding. Why do we even need government agencies? And these are just two. There are many more, such as the FTC and the Department of Labor. It is because the inherent divides in capitalism. The underlying premise of capitalism is more. Profit over people. Profit at any cost. This creates a competitive environment where private companies and sometimes the government, are essentially trying to make goods at the lowest possible cost, thus squeezing the actual workers who have to make these goods by making sure that their wages are very low, and also giving subpar products. Capitalists desire to be the lowest cost producer so they can maximize what? The profits. Which gives you predatory labor practices. Yes, I'm looking at you, Amazon. If you want to see what people who own the means of production do when unchecked, you can simply look to natural disasters. Almost every recent natural disaster in the United States equals a surge in high profits for certain companies while everyone else scrambles to pay the prices. Easiest example of this, as someone who grew up in Miami, whenever there's a hurricane, the cost of water goes from $1 to magically overnight $10. Which is why you need regulation. A quick historical note about the United States of America and racial capitalism. In the 1800s, cotton manufacturing grew to be one of the largest industries in the US, solely due to chattel slavery. The fact that United States decided to, teeth people from mostly West Africa and Central Africa, bring them over to the United States and have them work for what? Free 99, while also undergoing torture, malnourishment, and all other atrocities. It is a misnomer believed by many people in the North that the plantations of the South solely made the South rich. No, the plantations of the South and the cotton they produced, that money went to fund lots of factories in the North. Heck, some of that cotton was actually brought to the North in the textile industry. It's safe to say you can think of the money, the ill-gotten gains America stole from slavery essentially was America's first seed money. And chattel slavery didn't just die a swift death because of the Emancipation Proclamation. Chattel slavery gave way to sharecropping, which existed up until around the 1960s, reportedly, probably more so the 70s if we're being honest, and preceded America's still constant ideal of cheap labor. Forced low wages have actually been the name of the game in the United States for the past 6 decades. US hourly wages have actually stagnated since the 1970s. And if you don't want to take my word for it, here's some graphs. In the United States, more than half, 54% of Black households earn less than $50,000, while 46% make $50,000 or more. Only 18% of Black households earn more than $100,000. As a whole, Black people in the United States aren't really doing great under this capitalist system, even though Jay-Z doesn't seem to agree. Capitalism in the United States could not and would not exist without racism. Specifically from Dr. Ibram Kendi, to love capitalism is to end up loving racism. To love racism is to end up loving capitalism. The conjoined twins are two sides of the same destructive bodies. The idea that capitalism is merely free markets, competition, free trade, supply and demanding, and private ownership of the means of production operating for profit is as whimsical and ahistorical as the white supremacist idea that calling something racist is the primary form of racism. Capitalism is essentially racist. Racism is essentially capitalist. They were birthed together under the same unnatural causes, and they shall one day die together from unnatural causes. Or racial capitalism will live into another epoch of theft and rapacious inequity, especially if activists naively fight the conjoined twins independently, as if they are not the same. So now that we've set the foundations on what capitalism is and how it functions in the United States, let's see if capitalism changes if we change the complexion of the people who own the means of production. Spoiler alert, the answer is no. All you need to know about our favorite Caribbean capitalist empire can be found in the video Tiana from Fab Socialism did around Savage X Fenty. The video, aptly titled Savage X Fenty Made $1 Billion with Unethical VIP Memberships and Hiding Negative Reviews, delves into Robin's very questionable business practices. The video also does a great job of highlighting that yes, it is possible to prioritize people over profit and have everyone be okay. What a revolutionary thought. And, because Jay-Z brought this upon himself, on to Jay. We're gonna go a little bit backwards and let's pull up the Indeed reviews of Roc Nation. Indeed is a corporate website where you can essentially write how you were treated at the job, when you work there, when you don't work there, and companies very much care about their Indeed reviews. So much so that many companies, flub the reviews. Allegedly. From an employee from June 9th, 2022. Go where you are valued. Won't be here. This person was a senior director. Cons. CEO is out of touch. Company culture is depressing. Using sick/PTO time is frowned upon. So is leaving the office before 9 p.m. We're going to get to the pay part in a second, but I'm telling you now, they're not paying leave after 9 p.m. money. Another employee stated, all the positive reviews in 2022 are capital letters fake. Pros. Please don't believe the fake positive reviews that management is directly posting or making employees post. You have to write in a pro, and Indeed, it won't allow you to write a con. Clever. I see what you did there. Cons. Read the rest of the reviews for the truth. Another employee, not what it seems. Pros, concert tickets, sport events, clout, you look cool. Clout don't pay bills. Clout also doesn't buy grocery. Cons, very unorganized, underpaid, poor management, not a place I'd recommend. Not paying the kids in clout, Lord have mercy. Last but not least, run, it's not what they market to the world. Pros, being associated with Jay-Z is probably the only pro. Cons, whatever the salary is, you can expect to make half because you will quit or get fired before the year ends. After a year, you are eligible for 401k. Companies that only allow you to have 401k after a year are inherently predatory. They should allow you to invest your money that you earned for your retirement the day you start. Why should you have to wait a whole year? Speaking about Black capitalists and why Black capitalism won't work for Black people is not a new conversation. However, it is being reignited because Jay-Z decided to have a Twitter rant on Twitter Spaces.
We're not falling for that technology, whatever, this public puts out there now that, before it was the American dream. Pull yourself out of bootstraps and you can make it in America. All these lies that America told us our whole life. And then when we start getting it, they try to lock us out of it. They start inventing words like, capitalists and, things like that. I mean, we've been called monkeys and shit. I don't care. Those words y'all come up with, y'all got to come up with stronger words. When I say y'all, I'm not talking about you. The words they come up with, they got to come up with stronger words. We're not going to stop. We're not going to be tricked out of our position. Y'all locked us out. Y'all created a system that, doesn't include us. We said, fine. We went our alternate route. We created this music. We did our thing. We hustled. We fucking killed ourselves to get to this space, and now it's like eat the rich and think, man, we're not stopping. So that evolution is, from us, we came from selling 7 records and selling records out our trunk, and no radio play, and I think Reasonable Doubt did 36,000 the first week or something like that. I may be adding a little to it. So I come from Marcy Projects. In my first house, 615 Lexington Avenue, my grandmother's house, 7 families lived. Like, she has 7 kids. My mother and my parents and siblings lived in that house. My aunt Niecy lived in that house. Hootie lived in that house. Butchie lived in the basement. I mean, this is one house. I went back to that house. I did an interview with Oprah, and I couldn't believe how small this house was. That all of us lived in that house. So again, that evolution that you speak of is just real, and it's happening in real time, and I'm talking about it. And we're not going to stop, and we're not going to stop talking about it. They're not going to trick us out of it and make us feel ashamed to be successful in a place that set up a system for us to be dead at 21.
Imagine the hubris to think that the word capitalist was created just for you and not in the 1600s. Is it guilt? Is it denial? Is it just lack of reading? Honestly, I really just want to start throwing books at people, but I feel like that's probably frowned upon. The main issue I have with Jay-Z's whiny rant is A, pretending the word capitalist, which he chose to be, is the same as the N-word. Now, sir, stop that. But mostly this concept that he keeps saying, we. Who is we, Sean? Parlez-vous français? There are only 7 black billionaires in the United States. We don't need any more. And 41 million black people. Again, back to the stats, the average black family makes $50,000 a year. Who is we? Jay-Z has become the token tale of, I made it, so can you. Because in one breath, he's acknowledging that the American dream that they sold to all of us doesn't work. But then in the next breath, he says that we made it. Nah, Jay, you made it. And now you're mad that we're all saying, yeah, but that representation is not liberation. He's insinuating that the American dream started to work, so now people are making words like capitalist, even though the word capitalist predates him. No, the American dream still doesn't work. It just happened to work for Sean. And maybe in part because allegedly he's not paying his workers, but In his Twitter rant and through his songs, Jay-Z constantly reminds black people that he wants to be adored, that he's made it and we should bow down, bitches. And not just bow down because he's come from Marcy Projects, more on that later because the people of Marcy is tired of him, but bow down because he thinks himself somewhat of a black liberation activist. Very interesting, specifically with his constant mention of actual black liberation activists. In the article Nobody's Savior, Jay-Z Can't Be Our Messiah by Latasha Harris, Miss Harris writes, when he rapped, I arrived on the day Fred Hampton died of Real Negroes Just Multiply on Murder to Excellence, a song from 2011's Watch the Throne. Apparently, Jay-Z believed that his contributions to the world were as revolutionary as those of the Marxist-Leninist activists. And that's not the only time he's mentioned Fred Hampton, much to the chagrin and full-on irritation of Fred Hampton's remaining family. It should be noted that not only was Fred Hampton a staunch anti-capitalist, as were most black liberation activists, they understood that capitalism is inherently exploitative, and that capitalism in the United States is inherently exploitative and racist. It should be noted specifically to a one Mr. Sean Carter that Fred Hampton, the deputy chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party and the leader of the Rainbow Coalition, before his murder and in his most famous speech stated, we've got to face the fact that some people say you fight fire best with fire, but we say you put out fires best with water. We say you don't fight racism with racism. We're going to fight racism with solidarity. We say you don't fight capitalism with no black capitalism. You fight capitalism with socialism. I guess Jay-Z missed that part, but he's reincarnated and all. It seems like Jay would rather compare himself to Fred Hampton than actually listen to Fred Hampton. And back to the prior point about our black liberation activists, the majority of them were staunchly anti-capitalist. Sans Marcus Garvey, big up to the artists, but we kind of dropped the ball on that point. That's all right. We're doing better, the younger generations, hopefully. So I'm very confused as to why Negroes are going onto the Twitter and saying Malcolm X was a capitalist. What? Direct quotes that clearly the blue check missed from Malcolm X. You can't operate a capitalistic system unless you are vulturistic. You show me a capitalist, I'll show you a bloodsucker. Remember, capitalism functions because you have to literally prey on others. Now back to Jay-Z. But you know who's more upset than Jay-Z and his whiny rants? The people of Marcy Projects that he keeps mentioning. The only thing I could say he really did for us was the Christmas stuff. Every Christmas he would come around and he would give out free toys to the kids or like pocketbooks, perfumes, and little MP3 players. That was good. The Bitcoin ain't it. By the Bitcoin ain't it, Jay-Z, along with Jack Dorsey, the former CEO of Twitter and founder of Twitter, another billionaire, though not black, decided that sponsoring a 12-week Bitcoin program to the residents of Marcy Projects was a good idea. First of all, the level of tone-deaf foolishness on one hand, and then on the other hand, the predatory nature of thinking that this was a good idea. Bitcoin, first and foremost, is a speculative asset, as we have seen in the news for years, but most recently are seeing with the very wild fluctuations. And no, I'm not about to argue with you why telling people who are on their literal last that, hey, you're going to get out of poverty using this speculative asset makes no goddamn sense. Jay-Z and his team spent a Qcoin in all of the external PR. That is marketing it to tech companies, etc. Came to the actual marketing of the course to the residents. They literally just threw ugly flyers onto the floor. Level of disrespect. But you know, at least he can tell people he's helping the people of Marcy Projects. According to one resident, this is where he reps, he's from, and all that, but he don't do nothing for us. It's for show. Honestly, if the people in Marcy Projects received $1 every time Jay-Z said Marcy Projects, they would be better off than attending that Bitcoin class. To Gerald, the image of Bitcoin Academy flyers strewn on the floor spoke volumes. The fact that it was on the floor like that honestly symbolizes how people feel about poor people in general. On the surface, it looks like folks want to help, but once you start peeling back the layers, you realize nobody really cares. If Jay wanted to help Marcy Projects, he would help renovate Marcy Projects. He would help with the systemic issues that plague the people who live in Marcy Projects. He would lobby NYCHA to do a better job. He would give rent subsidies, education subsidies, not occasionally tossing around toys, which allegedly he hasn't even done that since 2017. Speaking of people who also hate poor people and affordable housing.
You look like clowns. I am not bluffing. I will take it all off the table.
All right, I'm going to take one more comment from, I see Dave is on. All right, Dave, go ahead.
I just want to say I'm adamantly opposed to it. Obviously, I live behind the development or the proposed development. I do have many business interests in town. I've invested millions of dollars in town. If you push this thing through, what I'm investing in is no longer applicable.
To add insult to injury, after Dave Chappelle killed the affordable housing deal in his little village, he went ahead and bought a decent chunk of the land that originally was going to go to the affordable housing. Now, if you're sitting there ready to get your Twitter fingers out to tell me you are still taking lunch with Jay-Z over the $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, hold. Yes, a few black billionaires have done one-off things to help people. Most notably, billionaire Robert F. Smith gifted an entire graduating Morehouse class, nearly 400 students, with all of their tuition paid upon graduation. The pledge netted out to roughly $34 million. That payment and being debt-free, I would say definitely helped those 400 students. And let's not forget about Jay-Z giving the toys, Rihanna having her diamond ball. However, overwhelmingly, there is no such thing as trickle-down black economics. Whenever we position representation as the end goal instead of a stepping stone to liberation, we end up with this. We end up with a few black people who have made it while the rest of us are meant to stand there, look up and adore, and be hungry. Which brings me back to the stats. Again, there are 41.6 million Black people in the United States of America. This is a very US-centric conversation, and honestly, we could have it with Nigeria, we could have it with any Caribbean country. The same thing is applying, with far greater disparity between the richest and the poorest person, to be honest. There are 41.6 million Black people in the United States and 7 Black billionaires. Those 7 Negroes can't save us, won't save us, and honestly, they don't even want to. We are fueling their dreams by continuing to buy their things, even when they are participating in questionable business practices, questionable production, questionable. People like Jay-Z would rather yell at us to pick ourselves up by the bootstraps instead of trying to tackle the actual systemic inequality that even allowed him to be the only billionaire from Marcy Projects. Black billionaires are anomalies in the system. They are anomalies in a system that realize at a certain point when luck and hard work hit them that they too would have to learn to prey on others. No amount of pointing to themselves as the magical I made it Negro is going to help the rest of us. And it's not going to change the fact that we don't need more Black billionaires. Let's end with the words of Queen Mother Audre Lorde. For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us to temporarily beat him at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about genuine change. And on that, I'll catch you all in the next video.